Hello world! Are we live indeed? Okay, awesome! So excited to have you all. My name is Monica Kang. I'm the founder and CEO of InnovatorsBox, and I am so excited to welcome you to another Innovation Unscripted dialogue. And this month, continuing the theme with parents. Last week, we had some very good heart-to-heart conversations. I had the pleasure of asking some of my friends working in different spaces to just share some honest conversations on what it means to be a parent right now in the midst of all the different challenges we face. They're with COVID-19, with Black Lives Matter, with all the changes, and being an innovator. We had some fruitful conversations, and just a reminder that there's really no one answer. And because there's really no one answer, I'm excited to continue that conversation with more friends who happen to be parents, and get their wisdom. So I know some of you are joining us live, some of you might be watching this later, but super excited to kind of dive in and ask some series of new questions. Would love to hear maybe what other things you have in mind, but I'm excited to get to know some of them and have some heart-to-heart conversation. So with that, let's get started. I think Tamika here. See, I believe, Tamika, you might be on mute.
Yes. Hi, Monica. Thank you for having me. I'm Tamika Montgomery, and I am from Tacoma, Maryland, Tacoma Park, Maryland. And I am rethinking how to do business development. My company is a consulting firm, so I'm really rethinking how to do business development in the age of COVID. And I am the mother of 3 boys, ages 10, 12, and 14.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Mccune. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm rethinking entrepreneurship and parenting both because now I have 3 teens, one of whom is headed off to college. And during COVID, during everything that's going on, just really having to rethink it all, which has been we're looking at it as a great learning opportunity for all of us.
Hi, I'm Darren Slack from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm rethinking how businesses, schools, and nonprofits interact with each other through human-centered service projects and community engagement strategies. And I'm a father of 2 kids, 11 and 5 years old, so I'm busy.
Hello, everyone. I am Priya, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, so not too far from Darren. I am rethinking how I can continue to work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion with a lens of change management, especially with COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter and just all the conversations we're having. And I truly am privileged to be a mom to an 11-year-old daughter who keeps me moving, hopping, and working on my competencies every single day.
Hi, my name is Yurani Sandoval. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I'm rethinking creativity and how to make single parenting easier with a community, with an online community, and also products and services for them.
Hi, I'm Jason Williams, also calling in from Indianapolis, but we'll soon be calling in from Northwest Indiana, so making a move here in just a few weeks. I am rethinking communities that support innovation through my work with Purdue University's Northwest Indiana campus. And I guess whatever topic you throw at me, I'll check the box because we have 5 kids that range from 2 to 18. So we hit all the categories. So excited to join the conversation today.
Hi, my name is Mario Garcia, and I'm joining from Seoul, South Korea. And I am rethinking how we help organizations grow in a manner that is consistent with sustainability and impact, moving away from business as usual and making sure that as we do more business and generate more profits, that we're actually leaving better societies behind. I have 2 kids, 4 years old and 6 years old, 1 boy and 1 girl. So, we got lucky in that sense. As with everybody else on this call, learning how to balance life with our family and with our business in a way that makes sense for everybody is really important for us.
Cool. I am Jeannie Chang, dialing in from Raleigh, North Carolina. I am constantly rethinking. I'm in mental health,
and how to appropriately address mental health, what I would call two pandemics, health and socially, of what's going on today, and being innovative in that virtually, right? How to best reach people where they're at. And I'm a mother of, I guess I could say proud mother. No, I'm kidding. Mother of 4 kids, daughter ages, she'll be 20 actually, my daughter, and my sons are 18, 16, and 13. And yes, I have a graduating, he is going to UVA. So whoever was in Charlottesville, yes. So he's super excited, and it does look different. So parenting is definitely different in a pandemic.
So with that, thank you all so much. Let me bring them all back. This is the wonderful group of friends. They can all see you. So if you want to say a little hello, yay. We're so glad you're all here, both here with us, as well as those who are joining online. I already see Michael and Carla. Carla said hello to Jason from Carla Taylor. Yeah. And, great to have all of you live. And so again, this is really a co-creating space. The reason why the show name, for those who have not joined us before, is called Innovation Unscripted is because while I do have some questions I want to ask these wonderful folks, I know you do as well. So take a moment, share your questions and thoughts in the chat box. I'm going to be checking in as we continue on these conversation. And with that, just to get warm up with where we are, I thought we'd do a little quick sketch question. So if you have your pen and paper, please, I would love if you can sketch what your last month looked like in a brief moment. Please sketch me what your this past month has looked like for you. I feel like and again, for those joining us live, we're so glad you are here. Give us a second as we reflect and pause. Okay. Are we ready? Okay, so when I say 3, I want you to put your paper up, but make sure we see your face and the image. So with that, 1, 2, 3, can you put it up in the screen? Now look at that. I am super curious to hear. I would love to, I'm gonna call out, if I can call out Jennifer and Tamika, what that means, briefly.
So mine, you can't tell, but mine looks like genies, but also with a heart. So it's lots of scribbles. And it's funny, Jeannie, because my kids are the exact same age as yours, except for I don't have a 20-year-old. I have 13, 16, and 18. So I feel like it's this chaotic scribble of like huge chaos, but then overlying love, because I have to say that probably in no other time would I have ever had that amount of time with my 3 teens together. So focusing on this chaos, but like, wow, what a great gift if I look at it from that point of view.
And mine is my version of a computer screen because I have 3 boys and we homeschool our children. We've always homeschooled, and I know everybody else is homeschooling because of the situation, but I feel like this has been more a prominent part of our life, our computers, than they had been previously, because of we're all just kind of stuck in the house. So a computer.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. Would love to also check in and Jason and Darren, if you can share yours briefly as well. You're on mute, Jason. You can unmute.
Yeah, it took me a minute to find it again. So I was kind of going with the same house and me, just kind of like Groundhog Day. That we're now on, not just the last month, I would say the last 3 months have pretty much felt the same. And I will admit, even from the start of this, my wife and our older kids were out serving in the city the first several weekends. So I kind of got, was in the routine of the one staying at home, and it's kind of stayed that way. So I really haven't, my car hasn't been driven much.
I drew a lifeline/hill, all right, because the lifeline/hill represents my stress and success. So stress, because I run a nonprofit, and so we've been on the front lines of really helping address needs in the community the past month and the past several months, actually. And so it's been up and down on the stress level, and just balancing work and family and the demands of kids being at home and trying to run the business. It's just been stressful, but successfully, we've really came out on top, right? And we're really doing a great job with getting out, and we've raised a lot of money this past month, and we're going to be in a good spot going into July. So stress and success.
That's amazing. I mean, Darren, congratulations on that. And what a timely keyword, right? Stress and success, which is the reason why all of you are here, which means a lot, knowing on top of how invaluable an hour time is, to take it away and take a moment to pause and reflect on some of the questions that we do. So a few things I think as a non-parent in the group that I always respect and think about with my parent friends, especially during this time, is just the clear reminder that being innovative means that we often like to do all these different things. We like to explore. But as a parent of different age of children, that influences in the shape impacts your work in a different way. And so I know even in our prep conversations, one of the conversations that immediately came out is like, hey, like it feels different when your kid is like 0 to like 8 to like 9 to 12, or like when it's 20s. Would be curious to hear some thoughts from the group, like who would like to share, just even the question, like how has, parenting evolved as children grow up, and like, especially at this time, because right now I know our audience, they probably have all different age range of children as well as parents. Would love to hear some of your insights because of your child's current age. How is that influencing how you show up and how you navigate and be creative at this time as an innovator? Yes, Jeannie.
Do I raise my hand? Okay. Old school, raise your hand, which kids don't do anymore. But anyways, I was going to say, I innovate. I'll be honest. It's great having older kids. I mentor a lot of young parents, and they're like, "Oh, I wish my kid was older." You know how you always want what's the grass is green on the other side. Well, it's a little difficult maneuvering through what I would call what's going on today, because my kids are older, so they were used to some freedom, and then the freedom was taken away. So the college student living at home, not so happy. She makes it clear. And she did lose a big internship in Spain. So I get it. She would have been in Spain. So we're trying to be the best we can to give her space, but no, it's not healthy to, keep your mask on, and then you're talking to friends, and then she can drive, and she wants to work, and she does work part-time in a lab for her school. She's in engineering. So I would say I'm constantly, the stress is being a parent, been working, and then understanding how it's affecting my own mental health when I have to take the risk of her going out there. And innovative, I don't know. It's more me just, this is something new. She's lost her freedom. I'm talking more about the college kid. The other ones are a little bit better because they're used to living at home. She's not so much. So trying to deal with her.
So one thing that I've been trying to do is my kids who are 13, 16, and 18, and my husband and I both are entrepreneurs. We both work from home, and our kids having this flexibility with being on summer break, and even prior, of having them take ownership and caring about the house. And so originally what we did is we laid out lists every day that the kids had to do something intellectual, something physical, and something for the house. And then we started morphing that into every day, one of the kids had to be a chore master. So one of the kids had to take the leadership of actually overseeing what that looked like, because my husband and I found it then became burdensome on us to make all those decisions. And it was good for our kids to start understanding what the running of the household looks like and what that leadership looks like. And my eldest, who's getting ready to go to school, he did not want to stay at UVA, Jeannie. He wanted to get out of Dodge, unfortunately. So he's headed to Northwestern, my alma mater, back to the Midwest where I came from. And he's really gotten into wanting to grocery shop with me and prepping the meals and making meals every day in preparation for when he's going to be out on his own. So we've started to innovate and having the kids look at the house together as a collaborative unit and looking at it from a leadership standpoint on what they can do to help.
So from my point of view, I think that, obviously we can't ignore the fact that, we have this pandemic raging around the world, and that's changing everybody's daily lives. At the same time, kids are going to be kids, and in spite of the coronavirus, they still have the things that they have to go through. And so our kids are 4 and 6 years old, and the challenge has been to maintain a semblance of normality, because they're still kids that are growing up. And in spite of the coronavirus, I think that there's some things that are just universal for all kids. Like Jennifer, you just mentioned, how do you teach them to be a part of household chores? Sounds like your kids are a little bit older, but 4 and 6, it's really nice for us when they also help with the dishes and picking up their toys. Um, and um, and I think that something, specifically to Monica's question about how do we deal things with their own at their specific ages. I think kids these days are growing up a lot faster. Our son, even though he's 6 years old, now he can browse the internet, he can browse YouTube, and there's just only so much you can do to control any kind of information. And at the same time, kids are going to grow up and they're going to want to do what they want to do. And so we don't try to keep an idea of what is age appropriate, rather, guiding them through the life that they're experiencing, both in the terms of the things that they see as well as the things that we buy for them. My son wanted to learn chemistry, and there was a chemistry kit for 10-year-old kids. And I didn't turn around and say, "Oh, you're not old enough for this. Let's do this later." We just went and bought it. And of course, they didn't understand most of everything, but as long as they liked it, they enjoyed it. And, they put on the whole goggles and gloves and chemistry, stuff that was a little bit too big for them. As long as they're learning something interesting and useful, we think that we're preparing the right kind of seeds for them to be growing up in a very different world, I think, than what we had when we were kids.
My eldest son turned 14 on Sunday, and now he's like a full-blown teen, and he wants his independence. And so that kind of how it's evolved is that, he wants more independence. And, he's a Black boy, a teen in America, and that concerns me. And during this time here, one of the things that he's been wanting to do is to just go for a bike ride in the latter part of the day, once it's cooled off, and just to ride in the neighborhood. And, on the one hand, as a mom of a young teenage Black boy, that concerns me, because I'm not there with him, and I don't know what he might encounter in that. But at the same time, I don't want to kind of be that parent who doesn't allow their children to go out and explore the world. So that is kind of, when you think about how it's changed by age, giving them more independence in spite of my own fears and concerns, but learning how to let go. And Monica asked me to speak also as it relates to homeschooling with that, and how it's shifted kind of with age and during this time. And, I've been homeschooling our children since the very beginning. And one of the things this thought came to my head was, when we first started homeschooling them when they were younger, we were the sage on the stage. And now, as they've become older, we are the guide on the side. So that's how we approach our homeschooling, is that they have, especially my two older ones, have gotten to the point, they're 12 and 14, where they are really self-directing, they're learning, and which is nice for us, because it kind of frees us up a little bit more. So, yeah.
So many gems of wisdom here. Thank you all for sharing that, and just being honest, to really talk about that. It's really not black and white. There's a lot of challenges. There's joy. I thought, Jennifer, you kind of kicked us off in that honesty. I was like, look how messy it is, just like Jeannie and everyone else's picture, but there's just a heart there. It's being able to see both. And in a way, as I'm like processing this and learning, one thing that I keep hearing is that there's actually a lot of core values as an innovator that really ties and reflects probably in the work that you all do. as well as that you bring in your family. I mean, even just phrases of learning how to let go. I think Tamika was just saying, figuring out, who says that chemistry book is just for like certain ages? Like my kid wants it, okay, fine, I'm gonna get it. And I think going back to the workplace and even in family, we often get back to the routine of like, oh, this is the fixed approach, we should do it. But as innovators, we know that that's not the case. And it, like, what I'm hearing is that actually also being a parent who is innovative, you kind of take multiple degrees of kind of rethinking that through in the spaces you create, both in the workplace and at home. So want to actually kind of check in with Jason and Yurani. Jason, first, if I can check in with you, how are you actually integrating all your wisdom and parenting actually back even into the work you do and how the community you build?
Yeah, well, that's assuming my kids listen to my wisdom, Monica. That's no, I mean, obviously, right. It is interesting, that we've been at home with all the different ages, right? When normally, kids would be at school and now they'd be on summer break, but still they'd have routines. I think we're now already missing some summer camps and times when kids would have had more of a routine. I guess, where my wife and I both have been able to, encourage the kids, obviously, to, certainly keep themselves busy. I think one that really stood out as I was thinking about this conversation today was, I mentioned earlier, we're getting ready to move. So we've also a lot of the house, and you really simplified the house a little bit out of necessity. But it's like, the kids seem to, they entertain themselves more when there's less, right? And, when instead of a toy box full of 100 toys, there's, 2 things in there to choose from. And there really is a good lesson there that I guess goes both ways on, right? I mean, less is more. And so it's been nice that they've been able to really rally around and entertain themselves in a way.
Thank you for sharing that and how that lesson learned goes back to all the community, because with all the work that you do in Indianapolis and the innovation, I mean, it's reflective of how you're processing that. And Yuranya, I know for you, it's a direct correlation to the work you do as both a single parent in the work of empowering other single parents. If you can share a little bit more insight into how your relationship with your daughter influences how you do your business and the work you do.
Yes, I'm happy about this question because especially for the single parents community, I think in my business, one of the key things, it has been collaboration, but at the same time at home, since I don't have any support, and my daughter is a teenager, she's 14 years old. So while she's helping me maybe with the cooking, we divided the chores, and we also enjoy with simple things. Now that she's on vacation, the summer vacation, yesterday, I bring that as an example, she was cooking, and then after that, she already knows that she also needs to help me cleaning. So that kind of collaboration at work and also at home, that has been very key. And to keep the curiosity, since she's a teenager, and I think that at the beginning of the pandemic was this, I can say like dissatisfaction, that kind of dissatisfaction or uncertainty, so that we change also at work, how to reinvent ourselves, but also at home with simple things, exercise together, meditation, because we did that, we do that, and cooking, that has helped me a lot. She wants to do new recipes, and I'm excited because this is a help for me.
And that ties to, I know, Priya, I've been watching a lot of the cooking that you and Elizabeth have been doing. Do you want to add anything to that? I know as a parent who's, as a family who's navigating, and I know, so you think you bring change management into the workplace as well. So I don't know if you're already teaching that to your little one along the process.
Yeah, that was, I was just thinking that as you were sharing cooking with your daughter. So my 11-year-old, ever since she was a baby, because I think this ties to what Jason said too, it's the experiences. It's the experiences that we just bring to our children. To Mario's point around the chemistry set, why define it? If someone has an interest in it, then if we just put them out there, we're not putting those limiting beliefs on them. And Tamika, to your point, that resonated with me. You're putting your fears, rightfully so. I'm not discounting them, but we tend to do that as parents. So I think it's that, for me, the big piece has been, it's the letting go and just going with the flow. You want to do this? All right, let's see how we can make it happen. Let's see if it's an economical project, and then let's work it out. So I'll leave us with this. Last week, I was given these little pieces of paper every morning with lunch request and dinner request, with the drink and time. And then I had to fill those out. And then I was invited to a meal of my choosing. And day before yesterday, I was told I had to change for dinner. So it's all about creativity and innovation, and we can eat well too doing that.
Love that. Love that. It's it's like a personalized restaurant. Thank you, Priya, for adding that. And another topic kind of tied to that I've been learning and thinking about is like, okay, well, it's one thing to kind of even think about this, but the other thing is that, I mean, even for me, I talk with my parents all the time. Like, my brother and I are completely different. Like, the way my parents had to think about how they were raising us, and now I think about all my friends who's thinking about how they raised their children, on top of bringing innovation in the workplace, on top of bringing innovation at home, navigating this differently. Like, that question of how do you address when your children are responding differently? And I want to start with Darren, actually, because not only do you have your family, but you also serve a community of youth for the work you do. And I'd love to share how you're navigating that, and would love to hear from you more.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, a very important question, because it's hard sometimes, right? It's hard to navigate the differences of our kids, of the diverse families that we serve within our organization. And we've touched over 5,000 people in the past 3 months, and 5,000 families actually, and they are from all walks of life. And I think the best way to navigate how to respond to those differences in economics and personalities and cultural backgrounds is just, I found that being vulnerable just helps just bridge those gaps with people, especially with our kids, right? I've had the privilege of working from home most of the time, and my wife is at home all the time with the kids. But just the fact that I'm able to be vulnerable with my wife to say, hey, I need some time, or hey, what do you need help with? And just being open in that sense, I think it's opened some doors and gotten us closer to how we parent, to how we do our work. And in the community, I mean, it goes without question that the more open that I am, the more vulnerable that I am, the more it encourages others to do the same, right? And that's really helped people and our family really navigate the different stress levels that come with the times, that come with this zeitgeist, if you will. So.
One of the things that I think has been really interesting about this time is people have had to pivot and innovate in a way that we really never have had to before. And we've had to, just hit head on with all of these changes that have happened so abruptly. And it's been interesting. So my two elder are boys and my younger is a girl. And my husband has worked really hard to connect individually with the three children. And with the boys, he's been doing a lot of boxing and jujitsu and mixed martial arts. And my daughter has been doing that prior to now, but she had a group of people that she was working with who were closer to her own size. So it hasn't been fun to do it at home because it's just such a huge discrepancy. It doesn't work. And so my husband's been encouraging her to bike ride with him a few times a week to have that connection. I also like seeing from an educational model, the kids have really been able to focus in more on what they might appreciate and what they might like. So of course, the online schooling has been hard, as we all know, but it also gives a little bit more differentiation that each kid, like we'll talk about different topics as a family and have each child pick different topics that we want to talk about. So focusing on how this pivotal moment, focusing on what we can control and the positive changes in it.
Yeah, Monica, you know, kids, each child is so different, and I don't have it down. I can just tell you, I'm still trying to figure this out, but you know, I think it does challenge me as a parent to be very present and aware of my children's different styles, right? What their love languages are, how they communicate, how they don't communicate, and what they're communicating in their lack of communication. And so it has really challenged me to really try to be present in my parenting. And that also goes into kind of in our schooling, really, as Jennifer, that you said, I call it delight directed learning. That's what we try to do with our homeschooling, is allow our kids to follow their delights, and each one has a different delight. And one child's delight may not be something that resonates with me personally, but it's his. And so we allow him to explore that thing. So it's hard. And Urani, I have to just commend you as a single parent, because I feel like I get some reprieve from with my husband, because I can just be like, okay, I'm like up to here. Jonathan, you deal with the boys, you take care of, you deal with them, and I can kind of just check out. And my mom was a single parent, and I could imagine my patience level really wanting to snap if I had to manage it all by myself all the time. But yeah, so that's it.
So in this case, yeah. So in this case, I want to share that I try to give my daughter like a voice, that to empower that, and also ask her for what do you think, or choose today, sometimes for Sundays or weekends that we order, what do you want, like involve her in many choices. But also it's a challenge, right? Because she's a teenager. It's like, but I have my own opinion when they are 14 in this case. But also being in her world, because I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't know what to do, because the school also didn't have the transition was difficult for virtual. So I tried to keep her a routine, or also my work and everything, and I couldn't. I tried many things, and at the end we got that, but it helped me a lot to be in her world. Like, she's asking for something, but it's like, for me was, and then it's like, okay, show me, or yeah, I want to know. So this helped me. And also it was like a disconnection, because sometimes when, yeah, it was disconnection for the war, but we were in our own war.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And, again, the reflection of how nuanced it is. And one thing that I hear the commonality is just the importance of communication. I think sometimes as adult, we bypass like, oh, yes means yes, but actually, does yes actually mean yes? Like, can we talk about that? And it sounds like actually that conversation with children as a parent almost probably inspires in the way how you, again, bring that both at home and in the workplace, in the communities you serve. And so, that being said, I know, Tamika, thank you for acknowledging. And we had a little chat group here all saying that, no, like, if any parent says, I'm going to shout out to Jason, say, if any parent said that we figured out, then they're all liars. I mean, like, it's so true. And I think it's also reflective even in innovation. If somebody says, I figured out everything, it's like, figured out what everything, right? And so I want to tie that back to, like, let's be honest, it's not easy, as you've all said. Like, what actually really worries you, and what are things that you wish like maybe other innovators and other colleagues understood better about what it means to be innovator and a parent? And I want to start actually with Jeannie, because I know you actually talk a lot about this, both directly with different families, youth, and just what are things that you're worried about and that more people should be aware to have this space to think about.
That's a great question, because I'm constantly talking about being mindful of our anxiety. And I love what I think it was Darren saying about being vulnerable and just admitting it. That is actually a great way of addressing our stress. But I mean, this is because it's a pandemic, no one's lived through it technically, right? And I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing is kids, because I treat a lot of families, are struggling with the freedom that they have. That's why I brought that up with my daughter, where they're kind of reverting back. If I'm talking about college students, reverting back to childhood that they thought they had moved on. So parents are dealing with a stage in life that they really didn't expect, because I mean, you know, you're empty nesters. I wanted to send my daughter out and my son, but it looks very different. So I think the main thing, honestly, I love what Jennifer said about being one unit, and as a systems thinker, there was a good reminder for me to understand emotionally we're one unit. So how it's all trickling everybody, right? And there is no right answer except addressing, and this is what I'm going to say, putting your oxygen mask on first. So, you know, and because, you know, you hear that whole flight, when you're on the flight, you can't help your child. They ask you, put your oxygen mask on first, then put it on your child or someone that needs it. That's what I want to share. And that's what I share with parents. That's why we're getting stressed, because we're looking elsewhere, putting oxygen mask on everybody, and then we don't have it. And then our own stress or the lack of us taking care of ourselves trickles to the family. And so I'm really projecting on my stress to my daughter. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because she's struggling, because she wants to work. I'm like, ooh, work. I would love for her to work, earn some money, but this is a different day and age. So I'm struggling with it. So just so you know, I did allow her, we decided to do it. And I'm like praying every day. It's stressful. You know, do you have your mask? Do you have your gloves? Do you have your second mask? Do you have your... But yeah, so that's what I'm going to share. Just putting our oxygen mask on first and reminding ourselves, by the way, deep breathing. So bring that in, because that helps address our anxiety so we can think.
So to follow on that, I think one of the most important lessons that I would really like to share with parents who are also innovators is that we all want to be good parents and we want to be good innovators, but these two things are actually going to be in tension with each other, because to do either one of those, you have to be giving. You have to be giving in terms of your time, and you have to be giving in terms of your money. And sometimes you'll get to the point where your innovative activities are going to start wanting to take more time and more money, that if you don't devote to your kids and your family, can actually start to negatively impact them. And I think there's some extreme cases, unfortunately, of very popular, very famous, very effective entrepreneurs and innovators who maybe weren't such great parents after all. And so I think that it's important to resolve this conflict. And one of the things that I've learned how to do, and I have to say that I should have learned it a lot faster, I think, than I did, is that we want to be giving to the communities that we serve, but we do have to learn, how to think about a business model and how to monetize, and to tell people, yes, I can help you, and it's going to cost you this much. Because that amount of money that you receive, it's what's going to put food on the table. So it's going to buy the chemistry kits. So it's going to buy the bicycles. And you owe it to your kids to be able to do that for them. And if the work that you're doing in communities is so valuable, then your kids shouldn't be without a bike and educational materials and your parents' times in the afternoon. So learning how to say that I can help you, but it costs this much money because this is how much value you're getting. And sometimes saying, and I can't help you now until next month because I need to be able to make it home on a regular basis at a reasonable time. And putting those limits on the work that we do, I have found, is very important to have a healthy life at home.
Yeah, I concur, Mario. I mean, on that note, I used to look at success as being a good father, a good husband, a good son, a good brother, a good friend, right? But I'm looking at success now and during this time, and success is just being present for others when they need me, especially my kids, especially my wife. And it used to be that I just wanted to do good work and be a do-gooder for the community and for the world and provide for my kids and my family. And that's all still true. But to your point, Mario, I think the urgency is that we need to model motivation. We need to model grit. We need to model perseverance. We need to model social justice for our kids, especially as they get older. And that's a realization for me because my kids notice every single thing that I do. And in being an innovator, I'm like, where are you coming up with those things, my 5-year-old daughter? and I just can't fathom like how our brain thinks, but it thinks like me. And that's really cool to see. And so I have to keep modeling that sense of motivation, that sense of grit, because it is going to rub off and they are going to be innovators and imaginative, free spirits because it's being modeled and they see that every day in the household. And I even take them to work with me sometimes because they have nothing else to do. I'm like, hey, let's go on a field trip with daddy and go serve some people. And if I ask them, hey, what does PROACT do? They know exactly what it does, even at such a young age. And that's so cool to see. And so this pause has given us time to really reconsider some things and look at ourselves and how we are really influencing positively or negatively our kids.
Wow, so powerful and so insightful. I want to piggyback on all of this because the number one question that comes to my mind, and I do one day hope to have a family and kids, and I'm going to be following up on all of you for advice when I get to that life stage. But the question that comes to mind is like, okay, well, now I feel like, I'm sure, I hope maybe parents ask this, but as even a non-parent, like, what skill do you even start teaching them? Like, how do you even figure out what to talk about? And like, I know we've even talked in the chat box, entrepreneurship, financial literacy. I want to actually start with Jennifer to think about, I mean, it's one thing to teach like tangible, like, workbook skills, but it's like, how do you even give them the mindset of like, how do you plant the seed so that they start being innovative, knowing that it's important for you as a person in what you do, but how do you even plant the seed among your little ones and extend that in the family?
Well, for one thing, and I remember this is a great story when my eldest was in kindergarten and he came home from school one day and he said, Mom, you forgot to return my library book. And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, who forgot to return whose library book, honey? And I said, it's your library book. I've been in kindergarten. I've been there, done that. Like, I'm going to help you, but this is your responsibility. This is not my responsibility. So even from a young age, I've very much been there to help my kids every step of the way. And once they reach middle school, it's their responsibility to try and work out their challenges first with their teachers and their friends. And then they come back and we discuss their plans. And then if they need help, I intervene. But starting middle school, they have to go first. And then starting high school, my kids are all ready to go with that. And then in college, we'll see. Hopefully that's all played out, but it's really instilling. And I think it's giving the kids the confidence that they can do this. They've been set up with the tools to be able to do it. And then modeling, having them be part of the entrepreneurial businesses that my husband and I have done, and talking about them at the dinner table and talking about the importance of different revenue streams and having these conversations from a young age so the kids feel good about their decisions and know they can do it themselves.
I absolutely love that, Jennifer. In alignment with that, the thing that comes to me as I think about parenting and how do you build the skills from early on. I think my daughter was probably about 6 or 8 months old. I applied the concept of ask versus tell, right? So even when she was little and she really didn't get it, I would give her 2 things and say, do you want this or this? And I have held on to that. And even now when she's not listening or when I'm asking, I'm not getting an answer, I pause and say, would you prefer if I tell you what I want you to do versus ask you what you want? It seems so simple, and not to oversimplify it. But I think that also illustrates to what Darren was talking about, that whole piece of, we're modeling the way. But for me, the big piece is and I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, is I help her understand, even though she looks up to me, I'm not perfect. I have a lot of moments where I am messing up, and I tell her that, I'm around you, I'm modeling the way, but please know I'm not the benchmark for the world. So eventually you're going to start to question it, right? But to me, it's like those skills from an early age is every action consequence. So if you want A, there's a consequence. If you want B, there's a consequence. and that tends to work really well, or at least has so far. So, that's just my 2 cents here as we talk about this.
Yeah, no, that's all great stuff. Thanks for sharing. And I think answering this question, one thing I think we've been very conscious of, and even now as we have an 18-year-old thinking back to when he was younger, is just really helping kids, our kids be curious and kind of figure things out on their own. One that always comes to mind is we have a great climbing tree in our front yard. And, some of it's figuring out on their own, some of it's, I guess some of those safety measures, but our rule has always been, look, you're welcome to climb the tree, but we're not going to help you get up there, right? So, it basically, until they were big enough or smart enough to figure out to put a ladder under it, right, we weren't going to put them in the tree. And we still see that across all the ages, right? It could be our 10-year-old that wants some hammer and nails and some boards, and sure, go build something, right? I mean, as long as we know they're not going to, severely hurt themselves, right? It's certainly not going to encourage the 2-year-old to stick a fork in an outlet. But, if the 2-year-old wants some other things that he may, not be the appropriate age as far as toys he wants to figure out, and we know he's not going to hurt himself, then fine. So I think there's definitely some benefits around, empowering, kids to, have a chance to figure it out on their own and not be so worried about, what might go wrong, again, as long as we know there's some measures there.
So insightful. And thank you for building all of that. I see, actually, we still have a little bit more time. So Tamika, actually, would you like to step in? I know you wanted to add some thoughts.
Yeah, what I try to do with our boys is really encourage, and I might even say I push them to step outside their comfort zone and to do it in ways that seem small. We had an incident where my middle son, I think he was 10 or 11, wanted to make pancakes for the family, and we didn't have any milk. And so I was like, well, you have to check and make sure you have the ingredients before. And he asked if we would go to the store and buy the milk. And I said, no. I said, why don't you go knock on the neighbor's house and ask them for some milk? And when I told him to do that, I realized when I was a kid, it was common for us to go knock on a neighbor's house to ask for some sugar and egg, but we had never done that. We'll just hop in the car and go get. So my son had never done that. And he was so stressed about knocking on the door of a neighbor and asking for milk. And so I had to coach him. I was like, okay, do you want to practice? To help him build up his confidence. So we practiced his speech on what he would say. And it took him a while. And I remember looking out the window and watching him do this and knocking on the door. And he came back with this smile on his face, because he got it, and I told him, I said, if she doesn't have it, she's going to say no, because maybe she needs it for her own family, or maybe she just doesn't have it, but you need to ask. So I think encouraging our kids to push beyond their comfort zone and to get comfortable with the uncomfortable is so important to learn early.
Yeah, so I want to add that I was, when I was listening all these comments, especially as an entrepreneurial perspective, I remember that last year, I had the opportunity to teach entrepreneurship, and I request my daughter to help me, but I didn't expect anything, just to go with me and help me with the kids, right? And after the classes, that the classes was over, she said, I can be an entrepreneur. I can, it was like innate, yeah, natural, it comes natural. So because sometimes as a parent, we want to teach many things because that is our responsibility, right? But it's also with our role model.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I am going to go back again and watch this when my time comes. I'm sure we're going to share this with everyone else. And I know, again, at least for me, like even a lot of my friends who are parents, the number one question they always ask is like, well, how do we make sure they stay creative? And I think we probably have, guys, just rewatch this. There's like 20 different activities you can just do at home at this point. And so I really am grateful for all of you sharing your time and thoughts. And, I know many more are still hungry to learn more. Maybe I would love to go around and maybe to hear each one of you, to hear again, what is at least, one final piece of advice, one action that, innovators who all happen to be parents can do and take the courage to do, especially at this time, and maybe even continuing on, because we still continue to live life even post-COVID.
So I would say one of the things I would do is make them solve their own problems. As parents, we always want to try to fix and solve everything, but kids are creative. They can think about and come up with solutions that we would never consider. And so always trying to really encourage them to solve their own problems.
So this, I'm going to say for the parents, and it's going along with what Jeannie was saying, give yourself some grace. So I remember when my kids were little, and my boys are 21 months apart, and I really struggled. It was really hard for me. And I was a stay-at-home for a while then, and my husband would come home from work, and the joke would be, how many episodes of Nemo did Max watch today? And if he watched, like 4, if it was a bad day, and if he watched 1, it was an okay day. Like that was my husband's like, okay, how am I going to enter the house? This was before cell phones or anything. Like we weren't texting and stuff. And so Max is going to Northwestern. Like the world hasn't ended. He ate a couple of bags of gummy snacks some days. I mean, that's crap. It's just sugar. And, the world didn't end. And I was doing my best. And so I think there's probably a little bit more tech time going on right now, and maybe a little bit more crap food going on right now. And don't beat yourself up. Like just give yourself grace and love on yourself and love on your kids and be okay with it. Honestly, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think loving on yourself is very important. I think the hardest part about using your life to solve a large problem in the world, right, I think is knowing when it is time to disconnect. And so some days are better than others for me personally, but I think for innovators who are parents or just people in general, I think it's important to really find time to disconnect, learn a new hobby, learn a new skill, try to read as much as you can and learn as much as you can, because your staff, your children are going to glean from you in that, right? And I think with any innovator, I think that sense of perseverance and grit, as I've said before, and that sense of humility and vulnerability are all very important qualities in this work, and especially in being a parent. And sometimes I think it's important for anyone to know, any innovator, any parent, that sometimes success is just going to bed at night, and when your bed hits that pillow, you say and whisper to yourself, I'll try again tomorrow.
Well said, Darren. I'll try again tomorrow. For me, I think it just boils down to, instead of using my own hangups, my own preconceived notions about something, when my daughter comes to me, I try. I mean, I do okay, but I try real hard not to just say yes or no. My response typically is, tell me more. I want to do this. Tell me more. All right. How are you going to do this? Why are you going to do it? In essence, through the lenses of innovation, we're ideating, right? And even as an adult, as an entrepreneur, I will invite her into my space, into my office. We'll put up a flip chart, and I will have her ideate a workshop on designing, because, I just know she sees the world so differently than I do. And even at the age of 11, she has some value to add. Because sometimes we think they're kids. What do they know? Let them be. But reality is they see the world differently. And to Darren, your point earlier, they're watching us. So they're picking up on it. To your point, right? The entrepreneurial spirit, it's all in us. So I think that's, at least for me, a tip on, don't just say they're kids. They don't know what's happening. They've got a brain for a reason. We need to put it to good use.
Love it. For me, as an innovator and entrepreneur, I think that one tip could be, I always use the question, why not? This is very important. And also, since my daughter is familiar with that, she also uses like, why not? This is bad, or in order to try new things. I remember that when she started learning how to swim and she was scared to jump, and I said, why not? And yeah, that helps. And when I don't know, or I'm not sure about the about a question, or I'm still thinking about a decision, I also said to her, what did you say to your best friend? Like, try that you are your best friend. She's dealing with things that for us could be simple, like what choose to use, or that, but with that simple things that she started doing these familiar questions, like, yeah, what did you say to your best friend? That's my tips.
Yeah, so I added a quick second final thought as everyone was talking, and I want to add, one thing Darren said was talking about disconnecting, and I think that obviously is vitally important, and we know that, and I guess just that thought that, right, us as parents and adults, we have the life experience and call it the maturity even to know that it's time to take a break and disconnect from things, and I guess the challenge that I stay conscious of is, are we demonstrating that for our kids, right? It's one thing that, if I'm telling them to get off their phone, but I'm doing this, well, I'm telling them to get off their phone. So, just trying to model the disconnection is certainly important. But I think, one of the biggest takeaways, and I think some of you had a chance to kind of chat about this a little bit in some of our prep calls going into today. And Tamika, you mentioned, right, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think that's important for us as parents, knowing that, we have to get comfortable with, some of the discomfort we see in just the culture and, the different, evolution that our kids are going through, right? I mean, the jobs they're going to be going into, the way they communicate with their friends, it's different than what we, would do or even prefer. And so it's getting comfortable with that. And, the one example that comes to mind is our 18-year-old. And, at this point, he's been working for a couple of years, but he cycled through a couple different, traditional jobs where we're like, come on, man, you were at the restaurant for like a month and quit, right? Like, where's your discipline? And now that he's 18, he was able to sign up for DoorDash, and he's a dasher. And I mean, he's super, yes, he's making money, so that motivates him. But right, he's happy. He's going out multiple times a day sometimes. But I think it's just the fact that, yes, I mean, he's growing up in this culture where, the convenience of being able to work when he wants to. And right, I mean, and I know that is much different. There's lots of adults now that make a living out of the gig economy, but I think even more so, as the generations, get older, but certainly now even coronavirus and the need for more gig workers. And so, good luck telling an 18-year-old and the rest of his peers that 5 years from after college, right, go get a 40-hour week job, be in the office this time of day, let us know 2 weeks ahead of time when you want to take a day off. I mean, that's going to cease to exist here pretty soon in a lot of industries. And so for me, again, it goes back to that getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, knowing that, wow, that is not the generation I'm from. So it is a little uncomfortable.
So I think that the last piece of advice that I would leave for other parents who are innovators is that it's really important, I think, to learn how to deal with issues when things go wrong. And kids make mistakes. And, I think that it's really important to separate our anger at a situation and make sure that that's different from being angry at our kids. Make sure that your kids know that something is wrong. I might not like it. I might have raised my voice, but that doesn't mean I don't love you, and making sure and welcoming them and knowing that when things go wrong, that's when they got to come looking for us. And that's when they've got to come and ask us for help and ask us for advice. And, not develop a habit that when something's wrong, I'd better hide it from mom and dad because they're going to get angry and ground me and punish me. And I think that has a very interesting mirror image in what do we do when things go wrong for us in our business and in our professional life. And learning to separate project failure or company failure from personal failure. Just because the business didn't work out, just because the project didn't work out, that does not mean you're a bad person. Sometimes you weren't able to meet the expectations of your kids or your clients. Doesn't mean you're a bad parent or a bad entrepreneur. And when things go wrong in the same way that you would want your kids to come looking for you for help, I think we also need to learn how to ask for help. Rely on the people who are on this call, rely on the people who are within your community and other people. Don't be afraid to go and say, hey, I tried something, it didn't work out, and I need some help over here. Either referrals to new clients or review on the website because that one you worked on didn't work out. And going back to what Darren was saying is you got to make yourself vulnerable. And in those vulnerable times, that's when you really, really find a sense of community and a sense of support. And that's where it really becomes a give and take with your kids and with your like business environment.
Last but not least, I was going to say two things. For parents, like I said before, put your oxygen mask on first, then put it on your child. And then to parents as well, pride. It is Pride Month, but this acronym is praise, reflect, reflective listening, initiate conversation, describe what's going on, and engage. Those are, I think that's just something to remember as you speak to your child. Always, sometimes we forget to praise. We don't reflective listen all the time. We don't initiate conversation at times. Describe what's going on as being less judgmental on my child's not listening, he's not doing this. What's going on that he may not be listening or she may not be doing this or feeling stressed about something, and then engaging. And I think we're doing a great job of that, but just reminding that and keeping pride in mind.
Well, on that note, I want to piggyback because I would also add, as a non-parent, I would say humor is also important. And I asked all our parents, if you can show your random object where you laughed out loud, I want you to show it on the camera screen. And viewers, I challenge all of you. This is your opportunity to reach out to all of them, ask them what those stories are, what made them laugh about it, and how they're tying in all these different insights and wisdom. And so again, thank you all parents and friends who are innovators for joining us live streaming or watching later. Thank you all for joining, 8 of you to have these conversations. But, really, again, nothing's black and white. It's a journey, but, from that we'll grow. And so with that being said, this is it for today. We will be back again further